I never thought a moment could freeze an entire room. But when the groom stood up, his expression unreadable, and said, "I think they should know something," the laughter stopped like a switch had been flipped. Champagne flutes paused midair. Forks hovered over plates. Eyes darted from me to him. And for a breathless second, it felt like the air itself had been sucked out of the room. It had started minutes earlier. My cousin Serena, flawless Serena, with her perfect curls and sharper tongue, lifted her glass during the toasts and smiled sweetly, like she always does when she's about to bite. "I just hope I never end up like her," she said, nodding in my direction. "Single with a kid." Then came the laugh, sharp and effortless, like this was just another harmless joke. The room erupted. Laughter, clinks of cutlery, gasps masked as giggles. My uncle, from 2 chairs down, added, "Men don't want used goods, sweetheart." Even my own mother chuckled into her napkin. "Used goods." I sat there, staring at the white china plate in front of me. I could feel the heat crawl up my neck, the sting well behind my eyes. But I didn't move. I didn't say a word. That's when Jason, the groom, stood up. The man Serena was about to marry. Tall, handsome, diplomatic. He pushed his chair back slowly, the scraping sound somehow louder than the laughter. He looked at me, then at the room, and said those words. "I think they should know something." Silence. "My name is Elena Warren, 34, single mom, graphic designer, former ghost of who I used to be. I used to believe that family was my safe place, that when the world got loud and cruel, you could always come home. That was before I learned that sometimes the ones who should protect you are the ones who aim sharpest when you're down. I didn't grow up poor. We were comfortable. Sunday lunches, yearly vacations, matching pajamas on Christmas. From the outside, we looked close-knit. Inside, everyone was silently competing. Who had the best job, the best marriage, the brightest kids? Serena was always the golden one. Homecoming queen, Ivy League, law firm associate by 25. Every holiday, every dinner, the question was the same. "So, Elena, are you still working from home? Still single?" Always with that half-sympathetic, half-judgmental tone. And I always gave the same smile. The one that hides the burn. The one that says, "I'm fine." They didn't know that the reason I worked from home wasn't laziness. It was because Lily, my daughter, needed me, and I needed her even more. They didn't know that I used to be engaged once, that I planned a wedding, that I had dreams of a white dress and a man who would keep his promises. His name was Daniel. We met in college. He loved that I wasn't afraid to speak my mind. I loved that he remembered my coffee order after 2 dates. We moved in together after graduation. Everything felt like it was unfolding perfectly. We were the next up couple, until I got pregnant. At first, he seemed excited. Nervous, yes, but supportive. We'd talk about names at night. He kissed my belly, bought tiny socks. But 2 weeks before my second trimester, something changed. He got distant, quiet, started working late, snapping at little things. Then, one morning, I woke up and found his side of the closet empty. No note, no explanation, just gone. A text came hours later. "I can't do this. I'm not ready." That was the last time I heard from Daniel. When I told my family, they were supportive at first, but support quickly turned to questions, then judgment, then whispers. By the time Lily was born, I could already feel the shift. Serena didn't even visit me in the hospital. Raising Lily on my own was the hardest, most beautiful thing I've ever done. She came into this world with a full head of jet black hair and eyes like mine, eyes that didn't need to speak to be heard. From the first time she gripped my finger, I knew I'd never be alone again. But the world doesn't pause because you're trying to heal. Bills still came. Work still needed to be done, and people still talked. I started freelancing full-time. Graphic design, branding kits, social media templates. Anything I could do from home. I'd rock Lily in a wrap while I worked. Nap when she did. Take calls with a mute button ready in case she started crying. We made it work. I remember one night when she was 2, money was tight, and I'd skipped dinner to make sure she had enough. I was sitting on the couch, exhausted, running edits for a client when she toddled over with her favorite stuffed bunny. She climbed onto my lap, put the bunny on my chest, and said, "You sad, Mommy? Bun Bun make it better." I broke. That night, I cried harder than I had in months. But not from sadness. From gratitude. Lily didn't see me as broken. She saw me as whole, as enough. And that kept me going. Over the years, things started to shift. Slowly, quietly, like spring after a brutal winter. I built up my client list, got better at charging what I was worth. I even hired a virtual assistant. Never thought I'd get to say that. I also started therapy. I was tired of pretending everything was fine when I still carried so much shame, not just from Daniel, but from my family, from the way people looked at me like I was a cautionary tale. My therapist once asked, "Whose voice do you hear when you doubt yourself?" I said, "Serena's." It shocked me how quickly her name came out, how deep she lived in my head. But with time, the voice got quieter, and my own voice got louder. Lily was growing up, too. She was 5 now, sharp, observant, and kind in a way that made people stop. Her teachers said she was the kind of child who made other kids feel safe. One afternoon, we were in the grocery store, and someone from high school passed by. She looked me up and down, did the fake smile thing. Lily tugged my hand and said, "Why do people look at you like that?" I hesitated, unsure what to say. But before I could answer, she added, "They don't know your magic. I'll tell them." My heart cracked wide open. We didn't have a fancy house, no big vacations, no co-parent, but we had real love. And to me, that meant we had everything. So when the invitation came, Serena's engagement dinner, I almost threw it out. But something in me whispered, "Go," not to prove anything, just to show up. As me, unapologetic, unashamed. I bought a dress I could afford, did my own makeup, asked Lily to pick my earrings. "You look sparkly," she said, "like a firework." I smiled. "Then let's shine." The venue was extravagant. Chandeliers hanging like crystal rain. Waiters in tuxedos. A pianist playing classical renditions of pop songs. Everyone was dressed like they were auditioning for a Vogue spread. I stepped in alone. Heads turned. Some smiles were polite. Others less so. I found my seat. Kept to myself. Answered the same questions. Still working from home? Still just you and your daughter? Still, still, still. They said still like it meant stagnant, like survival was a failure. Dinner was served. Toasts began. People stood to share memories, offer blessings, crack jokes. Then Serena rose, glass in hand, gown hugging her figure, a spotlight following her like she belonged on stage. She raised her glass and said, "I just hope I never end up like her, single with a kid." And everything inside me shattered. I heard the laughter first, then the echo of my uncle's voice. "Men don't want used goods." Even my mother chuckled. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I just sat still, frozen, burning, until Jason stood up. Jason pushed his chair back so slowly that it scraped against the marble floor, screeching slightly, enough to make people glance his way. But they still didn't expect what would come next. He wasn't smiling, not the way grooms usually do when everyone's toasting them. He wasn't holding Serena's hand. In fact, he hadn't even looked at her since she made the joke. His eyes were locked on me, Elena, he said, addressing me directly, his voice louder than it needed to be, I think they should know something. And then silence. Dead, suffocating silence. Like a stage waiting for a curtain to fall. Serena's smile faltered. She blinked rapidly and laughed under her breath. Jason, what are you doing? But he didn't acknowledge her. He stepped forward. 2 steps. 3. Stopped near the floral centerpiece in the middle of the long dining table. People shifted in their seats, suddenly unsure of whether this was part of the show. Jason didn't need a mic. His voice carried. Calm. Controlled. The kind of tone people stop eating for. I need to tell you all the truth, he began. Not because it's convenient, and definitely not because it's easy, but because I've spent too long pretending. And tonight, I watched someone I deeply respect get humiliated by people who should know better. He looked around the room, at my family, at Serena. I met Elena 6 years ago, he said, long before Serena, long before any of you knew me. My stomach dropped. He continued, his voice unwavering. We were in love, and she got pregnant, and instead of standing by her, I left. Gasps. Real ones. My aunt dropped her fork. Jason took a shaky breath. I told myself I wasn't ready. I made excuses. I told my friends she'd tricked me, that we weren't serious, that I dodged a bullet. He looked at me again. But the truth is, I was a coward. She was everything. And I walked away. I couldn't breathe. I didn't understand what was happening. Not fully. My body was frozen, but my heart was racing like it was trying to escape my chest. Jason looked at Serena. Finally, when we started dating, I didn't tell her the full story. I said Elena and I had dated briefly. I said we were incompatible. I didn't say I left her while she was carrying my daughter. He turned back to the crowd. Yes, my daughter. Lily. The room exploded. Not in noise, in energy. Shock rolled across the guests like a wave. I saw my cousin's fiancé spit his drink. My mother blinked like she'd misheard. Serena, for the first time in her life, looked utterly speechless. Jason stepped closer. I've seen Lily a few times, from a distance. I never had the courage to approach. Elena never begged me, never demanded anything. She just moved forward. He placed a hand over his heart. I told myself I could bury the past, that if I built a shiny enough life, no one would question what was rotting underneath. But tonight, I realized I wasn't burying it. I was hiding behind a lie that let people mock her, a lie that let me pretend I wasn't the one who left the most beautiful part of my life behind. He turned to me again. Elena, I'm sorry. And for the first time, I saw something real in his eyes. Not pity, not performance, just regret. Serena stood up so quickly her chair nearly toppled. What the hell is this? She hissed. Jason turned toward her, calmly. This is me telling the truth. You humiliated me, she snapped, her voice cracking. At our engagement dinner. He nodded. No, you humiliated her. I just stopped letting you get away with it. Her face flushed red. This is insane. You dated some girl in your past. That doesn't make her some saint. She trapped you, Jason. She kept the kid and... Stop. His voice was sharp now. Final. She didn't trap me. I abandoned her. For a moment, no one spoke. And then, from the far end of the room, someone stood up. My mother. She looked pale, ashamed. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her napkin. Elena, she said softly, you never told us. I looked at her, really looked. For once, there was no superiority in her tone, no passive judgment. I replied, quiet but clear. I didn't think anyone would believe me, or care. Serena scoffed. Oh, please. Don't turn this into some tragic Lifetime movie. And then another voice cut through the tension. From the side of the room. A small, unmistakable voice. Why are you yelling at my mommy? Everyone turned. Lily was standing by the doorway, holding her stuffed bunny in one hand and a little paper crown in the other. I froze. She wasn't supposed to be here. She'd been playing in the venue's bridal suite with the event planner's niece. She took a step forward, eyes big and calm. You're not nice, she said to Serena. You made my mommy cry. Serena stared, stunned. Jason dropped to one knee in front of Lily. Hi, he said gently. Lily tilted her head. Are you the man from the park? I blinked. He nodded slowly. Yes, I saw you and your mommy a few times. I wanted to say hi, but I didn't know how. Lily looked at me, then back at him. Mommy said some people get scared and leave. But that doesn't mean I'm not special. I couldn't hold it anymore. Tears spilled. Jason whispered, She's right. Then Lily walked toward me, wrapped her arms around my leg, and said loudly, My mommy is brave, and she's not used goods. She's treasure. There it was. The mic drop. Serena was frozen, red in the face, mouth open. A murmur went through the room. Guests whispered. Some looked down in shame. Others gave me soft nods, quiet apologies they didn't have the courage to say out loud. Jason stood up. He didn't try to touch me, didn't beg for forgiveness. He simply said, I'm sorry for the years I lost. I know I don't deserve anything. I just wanted you to know the truth. I stared at him, at Serena, at my family. I could have made a scene, could have yelled, demanded apologies, but I didn't. Instead, I took Lily's hand, looked back one last time, and said, Now they know. Then we walked out. Outside, the air was crisp. Lily swung our hands back and forth as we walked toward the parking lot. Are you okay, Mommy? I knelt beside her. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. She looked thoughtful. Is that man my dad? I paused. Yes. His name is Jason. Is he going to be around now? I hesitated. I don't know yet, but I do know one thing. What? You don't need anyone to complete you. You were always whole. She smiled and hugged me. I know, 'cause I have you. I closed my eyes and breathed her in. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to fight for my worth. I had spoken nothing but truth, and the world didn't crumble. It listened, and for once that was enough. The engagement dinner didn't end with a bang. It ended with a whimper. People didn't know whether to clap or apologize. Some guests left quietly after I walked out. Others stayed, unsure how to engage in small talk after such a public unmasking. From what I heard later, Serena tried to pretend nothing happened. She raised her glass again, trying to salvage the evening. But the clinking stopped sounding celebratory. It sounded desperate, forced, flat. Even the pianist paused. I guess even the music knew when dignity had exited the room. My mother texted me that night. Just one line. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. It wasn't out of cruelty. I just didn't have the energy anymore to explain to people why their laughter cut deeper than knives. I had spent years smiling through shame so they could remain comfortable. That chapter was closed now. And as for Jason, he didn't chase me. Not that night. But 2 days later, I received a letter. A real one. Handwritten, sealed in a plain white envelope, and slipped under my door. It began simply. I was a ghost in my own story for 6 years. Thank you for reminding me what it means to live with truth. He didn't ask for anything. Not forgiveness. Not a second chance. He told me he'd begun therapy. That he didn't want to be the man who ran from the hard things anymore. That he didn't expect Lily to ever call him Dad, but he would show up, however we would allow, if that door ever opened. I cried when I read it, not because I wanted him back, but because I finally felt seen, not pitted, not judged, seen. The fallout came fast for Serena. The video went viral. Of course it did. Someone had recorded the whole thing, from the champagne toast to Jason's confession to Lily's bunny-holding entrance and her line that became a TikTok anthem. She's not used goods. She's treasure. People stitched it, quoted it, turned it into merch. Within 48 hours, the video had 3.4 million views. Hashtag used goods, who became a trending hashtag. Comments flooded in. The little girl holding a bunny and calling her mom treasure made me weep. Serena, the living embodiment of generational ego. Protect Elena and Lily at all costs. I hope that little girl grows up and runs the world. Brands reached out. Single mom groups reached out. News outlets emailed me for interviews. And me, I just kept doing what I always did, taking care of Lily, answering client emails, making dinner on a budget. Except now, people listened when I spoke. 3 weeks later, I was invited to speak at a women's event in Chicago, a small nonprofit supporting single mothers in tech. They'd seen the video and offered to fly me out. I almost said no, but then I looked at Lily, sitting on the floor in her pajamas, building a Lego house and humming to herself. And I thought, she already knows I'm strong. Maybe it's time the world knows too. I went. I stood in front of 75 women who had lived their own versions of shame and silence. And I told my story. Not polished, not perfect, just true. When I finished, they stood and clapped. Not for revenge, not for drama, for survival, for motherhood, for reclamation. After the event, one woman pulled me aside and said, "You're the reason I left the man who kept calling me damaged. Thank you for showing me I'm not broken, just beautifully rebuilt." That was the moment I knew something had shifted inside me. This wasn't about Serena anymore. This was about all the women like me, like her, like the ones no one clapped for. So I started something. A community, not a business, not a brand, just a safe corner of the internet called the Treasure House, a space for single moms to share stories, swap resources, find freelance gigs, and heal without shame. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. We grew slowly, 100 members the first week, then 400, then thousands. Lily helped design the logo, a lopsided heart wrapped in gold thread. "This is the part where it cracked," she explained, "but this is the part where you fixed it." I kept it exactly as she drew it. And Serena, last I heard, Jason called off the wedding. Not to be with me, that was never the goal, but because he realized the foundation wasn't built on truth. He told her he needed to rebuild from scratch. That meant apologizing to Lily, to me, to himself. I didn't gloat. There was nothing satisfying about Serena's downfall. Not really, because deep down, I knew her cruelty didn't come from superiority. It came from fear. Fear that her life, as polished as it looked, was hollow inside. I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to step out from under her shadow. And once I did, it disappeared all on its own. One night, about a month after the dinner, Lily and I were in the kitchen. I was cooking rice and steaming broccoli. Simple, quiet dinner after a long day. She sat at the counter drawing with her markers, legs swinging back and forth in that endless rhythm kids always seem to have. "Mommy," she asked, "are people still saying you're used goods?" I stopped stirring, turned to her, and walked over. I crouched down, so we were eye level. "Do you think I am?" She shook her head immediately. "No way." "Why not?" "Because you're treasure, and treasure doesn't get used up. It just gets found by the right person." My throat closed. I kissed her forehead. "You're the wisest person I know." She grinned. I know. She went back to drawing. I went back to cooking. And somewhere in that ordinary moment, everything felt sacred. Because I wasn't living in reaction anymore. I wasn't performing strength. I was living it. Quietly, softly, loud in the places that mattered. Some stories don't need vengeance. Just truth. And the courage to stand in it, even when no one claps. I never did get an apology from Serena, but I didn't need one. Because I got something better. I got my name back. My voice. My story. And most of all, I got to raise a little girl who will never mistake silence for shame. She knows exactly who her mother is. And one day, the world will too.